Tilder!
This is the CVW Swift Z, a 2-in-1 monitor with a built-in wireless transmitter. Costs anywhere from $600 to $700 depending on where you buy it from. I didn't lose any signal up to 300 feet away with no line of sight. It has 2 NPF battery mounts for hot swappability. Lasts approximately 3 hours on one large Sony NPF battery. If you don't want to use this in a wireless transmission mode, you can actually use this as 2 separate monitors. Do I recommend it? If you've been looking for a budget wireless monitor solution, yes. Because you bought 2 cheap monitors and a wireless transmission instead, you actually be spending $100+ more than if you just bought the Swift Z.
Done. Roll that intro.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So today we're going to find out whether or not the CVW Swift Z, which is a 2-in-1 wireless monitoring system, is going to be the right solution for you and your overall filmmaking kit. And I want to thank CVW for sending this out to me so I can provide you with my review today. Now, I actually deployed this on a shoot just this past weekend, and sure enough, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. I'm actually very excited about this whole monitoring system because now the director doesn't have to come over to you just to review the clip. In fact, a couple of times the director, literally on playback, he was standing over my shoulder looking at my screen, and I looked at him and I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, that's right. I could see this thing wirelessly." So not only did we finish our shoot extremely fast because he could see what I was getting and say, "Yes, we got it, let's move on." I think this is going to make budget filmmakers really happy out there. So without further ado, let's get started. For $600 to $700, depending on where you buy it from, you get a case that holds these 2 monitors, as well as a host of accessories like the side handle for the RX unit and the sun hoods with their respective brackets. Design-wise, it's predominantly made out of metal with a small fan in the back, followed by 2 NPF ports for hot swappability, and all the input-output ports are on the right side. On the bottom, you have a USB-C port for firmware and LUT updates. And on the other side, we do have an 8-volt output, which basically allows you to power your camera if you buy the respective dummy batteries. In terms of its button layout and menu structure, this is the same UI we've seen from the Andy Cine A6 Plus over 2 years ago, that pretty much all budget monitor companies use today. You can call up your quick functions by basically clicking the scroll wheel and it will come to the bottom, and you can basically customize this to your liking. You have all the scopes, exposure tools you could want, focus peaking, aspect ratios, marker mats, etc., etc. The only difference is you now have a wireless menu that you can call up by dragging from the right side of the screen. From here, you can choose what channel you want each system to pair on, and should you want to send the signals to a smartphone or a tablet device, you have to set it to RSTP mode. Both units have to be set to this mode. One important thing to note is that your camera's HDMI output needs to be set at 1080p and not 4K. If the transmitter is receiving a 4K signal, the receiver, while it is connected, is not going to actually see anything. So make sure you have your HDMI output at 1080p. Last thing to note is please don't freak out if it takes a while for the receiver to actually connect to the transmitter. From powering on both units, it will actually take approximately 50 seconds to 1 minute before the receiver finally connects to the transmitter. For the battery test, I'm using 1 large Sony NPF battery, and I've purposely detached the antennas to force the system into using a higher gain transmission, in which case we are seeing about 3 hours and 15 minutes from the transmitter, while the receiver lasts about another 50 minutes. Yeah? All right, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 1, 2, 3, 8, 1, 2, 3, 9, 1, 2, 3, 10. So this is 100 feet away, no line of sight. 100 feet away with line of sight. All right, moving on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 1, 3, 7, 1, 2, 3, 8, 1, 2, 3, 9, 1, 2, 3, 10. This is 200 feet away with no line of sight. And then this is 200 feet away with line of sight. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 1, 2, 3, 8, 1, 2, 3, 9, 1, 2, 3, 10. This is 300 feet away. You're not going to be doing this, no line of sight. And then we'll do 300 feet with line of sight. Now, I normally would do a latency test for this sort of thing, but I kind of feel like it's not going to be that helpful to you, and here's why. Because your camera to the transmitter has its own latency, and depending on what camera you got, the latency could be super good or really bad, like the GH5 and 24 Hertz. So that is completely dependent on your camera. And then you have the transmitter to the receiver's latency, which is on average somewhere around like 50 to 60 milliseconds. So when all said and done, the director is looking at approximately 100 or more milliseconds of latency, depending on what camera you have. So that's why I'm not really going to be doing a specific test, because all HDMI ports that are going into this thing have some sort of latency coming out of the camera, and that's going to add a lot to it. So what's the bottom line here? Is the Swift-Z something you should be thinking about for your overall filmmaking kit? From a budget standpoint to the features that it gives you, I have to say it's a definite yes. Now let's talk about the budget real quick, as you guys know I love to talk about that kind of stuff. If you were to go out and buy 2 monitors of your choice, whether the cheapest ones or you can go as high as you want, followed by an actual wireless transmitter to receiver system, I personally review the Hollyland 400 or Mars 400S Pro, but you can go with any one you want. Generally speaking, if you are getting the cheapest monitor you can possibly find, which is usually around $125 to $150, and they range all the way up to about $200 per monitor. So just to make things easy, you're looking approximately anywhere from $250 to $300 just for 2 monitors. Now, if you buy the wireless transmitter system, those are on the cheap side, anywhere from $450, and it goes up from there. So if we're starting to think about it in those terms, you're already basically spending $700 on the cheapest end, and it only goes up from there. Not only that, you now have a monitor and a transmitter system that has to be latched onto each other somehow, whether it's on your rig or if you're trying to keep things small, they might just be all over your camera. And then you have to buy a separate battery for either one, unless you have a V-mount system that can run cords to everything. When you start thinking about all the stuff you need, the price, how you're going to rig everything up, the Swift-Z makes much more sense because everything is compacted into one monitor, and that just makes it super easy for everyone to handle, and you are saving money while you're at it. Not only that, when we looked at the distance test, I was very surprised that in a standard situation with my body blocking the transmitter to the receiver, because generally a director or whoever is going to be behind you, not necessarily to the side of you all the time. In that case, I was able to get in a normal shooting situation up to 300 feet away with line of sight being blocked by my body, and it didn't seem like it was tearing up at all. And I'm going to say that generally speaking, you and the director is probably not going to be more than, I want to say, 25, 50 feet away. So I didn't try to keep going past 300 feet because I think that's getting into somewhat ridiculous territory. You're probably not going to be standing that far away on a budget film set. In a huge Hollywood film set, sure, but on a budget film set, probably not. And not only that, I was going through a residential area, so there is Wi-Fi signals all over the place. I don't know how many 5 gigahertz bands are flying around this neighborhood necessarily, but I have to imagine there is quite a few. So the fact that it could go out 300 feet, awesome. Now, are there any cons to this system? There are, and that's just by design. For one, budget monitor companies really need to stop with this whole red status LED thing when you have a battery inside the unit when it's not even on. If you forget to take the batteries out, it's just going to drain it. The glass they are using is highly reflective, so outdoor shots are quite difficult. The sun hood doesn't seem to do too much because your own reflection and everything behind you will reflect into the screen. I hope in the future they make like a 1000 nit version or higher. Speaking of the sun hood, the bracket snaps on, but it also snaps off quite easily. Now, one interesting quirk is that the transmission does change your receiver's image slightly by raising the luma a little bit. The false color confirms this, as you can see the skin tone pink showing up in the receiver unit and not on the transmitter. In terms of the little handle for the director, while that is a really great idea, you have to manually screw it on. And if you do that, you can't put it back into the carrying case where the two monitors live. You have to take that handle off just to pack everything back together. I understand it's a cost-cutting thing, but it would have been nice if there was, I don't know, maybe just like an extra metal piece that they could have slid into it. That might be something we can think of in the future. I don't know. Last but not least, there is this tiny little fan that's inside. Is it loud? Not really. You really have to like focus to try to hear it. So I really wouldn't worry about it when you're on set. At the end of the day, I feel like the CVW Swift Z is a great budget wireless monitoring solution. The only deal breaker is probably for productions that are constantly outdoors in bright sunny days. Otherwise, I see this system highly valuable for the film shoots I'm on, and I will be using these more often either as a wireless director's monitor or just two monitors for camera operators. And hey, that is it for this week, everybody. If this video has made all the influence in your purchasing decisions, I would truly appreciate it if you check out my affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you. It just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.